There we go. Just going to start recording as well, Fran, so that we have this as well. For those of you, I think everyone knows you, Fran, but for just in case we have any people who don't know, who need a little bit of a refresher, Fran Luckin is the recently elected chairperson of the Loeries. Fran is currently the Chief Creative Officer of Grey Africa in Johannesburg. She began her career as a copywriter and then moved to BWA Hunt Lascaris in the late 90s, where she became a creative director. Fran then joined Ogilvy Johannesburg in 2003 and then became an executive creative director in 2008. In 2012, Fran was appointed to the 15-member Ogilvy Worldwide Creative Council. After 20 years in advertising, Fran went full digital, joining Corp South Africa as executive creative director of the Johannesburg office, and this happened in July 2013. Fran joined Grey as the CCO in 2016. Together with the executive team, Fran has helped to transform the creative output of the agency from a traditional advertising agency into a fully fledged, integrated multimedia, digital and social communications offering. Fran has judged international and South African creative award shows. Fran also holds an MBA. Fran, thank you for joining us and welcome on board. Welcome to the Loeries.
Thanks for this, and thanks for voting me in and all that stuff. It's terribly exciting.
So I should tell you that the secret of these Loeries creative hours is that overall the key plan is this, that and you're going to experience this as our new chairperson, is normally the chairperson would have this amazing opportunity to meet different people. We might even have this welcoming event and all of this, but even as a new incoming CEO in April, I couldn't have it. So one of the things we decided is this was an opportunity for me to have these one-on-one discussions and these chats and just let everyone eavesdrop on it. So that's
Fantastic.
What we're doing today.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm getting to know you. You're going to get to know me.
Yeah.
And
I'm not great at like cocktail party things anyway. I'm quite socially awkward. So, you know what I mean? You like drift around and, you know, so I much prefer one-on-one conversations.
Yeah, we'll just pretend we have all of these people and the hundreds of views and everyone across Africa and the Middle East watching us while we do this. Fran,
Yeah.
how are you coping? Are you at home or are you in the office? How are you coping with this lockdown?
So I'm at the office. Our office is fully sanitized and ready and compliant and all the rest of it. And a couple of us are working from here. So I come in a couple of days a week. So our CEO is here. The leadership team is pretty much working a couple of days a week at the office. I come in. It's nice to have a proper office chair. I don't have an office set up at home. So I've been sitting like on my dining room chair and then on my couch, and it really it's not great for your posture over time. So it's nice just to have an office chair, and it's nice and quiet, and you know, we have all our masks and our social distancing. So I come into the office a couple of days a week.
But how? Yeah, sorry, go for it.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm quite well suited to lockdown actually, because I quite like the solitude. So I'm not really bothered by the working from home, you know, living on my own thing. That doesn't really, it actually suits me quite well. And I find it's been quite productive. But yeah.
And how did you cope at the start of it? Because, you know, one of the things that we were looking at when we were chatting, I was having a chat with Book of Swag, who you spoke to as well. And we were discussing the challenge that creatives have at, especially when we're in that lockdown level 5 and when you're trying to just scramble and try and figure out how things are, but you still had the work to actually do. How did you cope in that time trying to, you know, be a leader in an organization like yours and having to direct the work and taking care of brands and clients in the same time? I
think, you know, at the beginning, the challenge was quite exciting. It was a strange time, but I think the challenge was quite exciting. That they thought of, okay, we've got to do this now. That, you know, how do we keep our culture going? How do we keep morale going? How do we keep in touch with everybody? And how do we make sure the work? So that process of gearing up, we went into working from home a week before formal lockdown, actually, because it was, you know, our head office said, well, we're actually going to move to working from home.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to organize internet access for everyone who didn't have it, and laptops, and then it was all about routine. So we have a creative status meeting every single morning with all the creatives, and it's headed up by our ops director. And then we just talk about what everyone's working on. And I mean, part of that is not so much to find out what everyone's working on, because the ops people know that, but it's just to go, how are you doing? Is everyone okay? And we quite often theme it. So Friday is Thanksgiving Friday. So yeah, so we've had ones where everyone had to speak in Afrikaans, and we had the next day everyone had to speak in Zulu as much as they could. So those are a lot of fun, and they kind of help keep everyone together. We have a town hall every Monday where we just well, it's once a month actually. We show work that we've done, and everyone's there, and we do shout outs to people who've done amazing things. So we've put in rituals to help everybody just feel like we're all together. There've been challenges. I mean, it's been a challenge working on big projects with lots of people all in, the creatives have had to figure out ways to brainstorm, because that thing, you can't get together to brainstorm. So they've been experimenting with things like, you just get onto a WhatsApp audio call, you leave the phone there, and then you both sit, in your respect, and you doodle. Yeah, it actually seems to be working really well. Some people just prefer working on their own and then having a call with their creative partner to bounce ideas off, and then you refine the ideas. So it seems to be working. We were worried about isolation, affecting people. So we've been very close to how people are doing. If anyone's had struggles, encouraging them to talk, making sure we stay in touch, things like that. For me, I mean, it was I enjoy working from home, but it was quite weird. Like my house makes a lot of really weird noises during the day. I wasn't aware of that. Like, you know what I mean? Like I would keep getting spooked because I'd hear something and then I'd go and investigate. So that was an adjustment. But I think we've been busy. We've had lots of work to do. So that also helped.
Yeah, no, I think, keeping busy helps. And especially in this time, it seems like we're busier more than ever. Yeah. One of the things, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. One of the things we like to do is, this chat that we're having, there's a lot of young creatives who are going to look at this, a lot of young entrants into the industry. It's always good to give them a bit of background in terms of how you actually came into the industry. So can you tell me more about that? What made you choose advertising? When you're standing at that point in your life and you went, there's so many different options. How did you decide to start this path?
Well, to be honest, I don't think there were many options for me. I mean, I was really I was good at writing. I've always been creative writing. I loved English, and I studied speech and drama. I was always good at drama and English and writing. I always wrote stories, even when I was a young kid. And I went to university and I studied English and drama, and I wanted to become an actress initially, and then but in South Africa, you have to be able to sing and to dance. If you can't do musical theater, a lot of the it's difficult to make a living unless you can sing and dance and do musical theater. There's not much here. Cabaret is big here, dinner theater, and I can't sing or dance. So that was out. And then I think, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. Like, what do you do with an English degree, really? And I was going to become an academic. I was going to be an English lecturer. Yeah. And I got to the end, and I mean, I think I would have really enjoyed that, but I didn't know what else I could do. And then in my honors year, the AAA came around to the campus, and they were talking about, the AAA was very young at that stage. It had just started, and they came to do a presentation at the campus, and I thought, well, that's interesting. I can make a living writing. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I had spent a day at an ad agency in Matric as part of a work experience thing, and I loved it. It felt like home. And so, I decided to go. And at that stage, you actually had to do an interview for the AAA. I don't know if you still do, but you had to pass an interview. So I go to this interview, and there's all these people sitting with portfolio bags in the waiting room. And I'm like, anyway, I mean, so I got in, and then I went and spent a year. It was a year post-grad copywriting course. And honestly, I wasn't the best writer in my class. I had my best friend Alistair and I used to sit together at the back of the class, and we used to joke about how we were never going to get a job, you know. And yeah, so the Jupiter Drawing Room at that stage was doing apprenticeships. It was their first year. They had this, Graham also had this idea to bring in apprentices for a year, and then at the end of the year, the option was to hire them. And so I got hired. I mean, Graham was doing interviews, and I remember going to the interview, and I had my portfolio with me, and I really just liked Graham a lot. And he had this big library, he had this office which was just all full of books, and I just wandered around and looked at all his books while he looked at my portfolio. And I mean, it didn't occur to me that that might not be appropriate behavior in an interview, like, but I think he liked that. I think because my portfolio wasn't, I don't think it was terribly good, but I think that he liked the fact that I love books, and I like, you know, and that I wrote for pleasure other than like copywriting at school. And so he gave me a chance. So I was an apprentice for a year, and then I got a full-time job. And even now, I think I learned from him. I often look for, in a writer, I like seeing that they write for pleasure outside of advertising. You know, quite a lot of the time I'll ask to see somebody's personal writing if they've written a short story, or I really like to see that because it means they love writing, you know, for itself.
How do you still find time to just write for the enjoyment of it, or do you find that your job now takes so much of time that that's been pushed aside right now?
Yeah, it does actually. The job actually does take up a lot of the time. I started a blog a few years ago, and I wrote a blog post which I really enjoyed doing. And I try and like, I don't think I've got a, everyone always says you should write a book. I don't think I'm a novelist, but I think I might be an essayist, or like I'd love to write a screenplay. So at the moment I'm kicking around like a short film thought, you know, but the thing is, you know, writers write, that's what they do. They sit down at their desk and they write. And I actually have to carve out that time. Like Stephen King sits down at 8 a.m. and he writes until lunch. And then after that, you know, that's what he does. Well, yeah.
That's his job. He's like, he has to do it. There's people like on his back going, if you don't release this in the schedule, we aren't able to meet our schedule.
Yeah.
And it's very different when you're doing it for pleasure versus doing it for a commercial perspective.
Yeah, you've got to carve out the time. And actually it takes a long time because, you know, you can't just write down the first thing and go, oh, that's rubbish. You actually have to just sit and sweat it and like rewrite it and bounce it off somebody. But yeah, one of the things, and I mean, you know, going into lockdown, I thought, oh, well, I'll have much more time to do personal writing. Well, no, I mean, literally I've been on, you know, you're on video calls all day, and it kind of blends into evening as well because the boundaries sort of aren't there.
So when you started your career and did you find any challenges? I mean, was this just a seamless transition going from, was this all in Johannesburg, by the way? Did you
No, I'm from Durban, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yes. I'm a Durbanite. I know, the best people.
At the Loeries.
I know, right? I know. So I grew up in Durban, and the AAA was only in Joburg at that stage. So I had to leave home, move to Joburg. I think, you know, the Jupiter Drawing Room was a very small company when I joined. It was literally Graham and Dennis and Derek. And then I think there were 5 of us apprentices, and we almost doubled the size of the creative department. So it was a small business, and it was very eccentric and like very relaxed. And I mean, I don't think I ever went home before 10 o'clock at night, just because it was such fun hanging out at the office. So I found that quite easy. And you know, Graham is very much a writer's CD. So he taught me a lot about writing. And so I just really enjoyed it. So it was quite a natural, I found that I just enjoyed it. I was doing something I loved. I found it came fairly easily. I had a really great art director who was also like, we were a good match. From the start, we worked together well, and we liked hanging out together because we were also friends. So it was actually a lovely, like as a first career, it was just lovely. I never had any doubt that I had done the right thing. It always felt like, I'm home, you know?
Yeah. A lot of the young people we're chatting to as well, you know, as they get into the industry, and you're at your first job, and as I can see, you probably went through the same experience of just being surrounded by this culture of the first organization you're in and loving it and enjoying it. how do you know it's the right, and again, from the discussions we've had, how do you know when it's the right time to leave? And maybe not just your first job, but being in a space that you're absolutely loving. What are the cues that you look for to actually make the next move in your career?
I have not moved around a lot, like comparatively. You know, I was at Jupiter for like kind of 3 years. That was probably a short tenure for me, but I mean, you know, Hunter Scars, I was 6 or 7 years, Ogilvy 10. So I mean, for me, if I'm being challenged and I'm growing, then I'll stay. And I've been lucky that the challenges are new. If you feel like you're stagnating, or you've always got to, for me, it was always about my portfolio. You know, the reason I left Jupiter was because I wasn't getting work in my, I wasn't getting the work I wanted in my portfolio, specifically TV. So I loved Jupiter. I had a lot of fun there. But when I went for the interview at Hunter Scaris, Tony Granger interviewed me and he said, your portie's, it's really nice, but you don't have TV. You need to do TV. And he was right. And I did tons. I mean, Hunter Scaris was a very different culture and it wasn't as relaxed and goofy and fun. It was a lot more pressurized and it was a lot like I was in serious discomfort zone there. But I made lots of film, which is invaluable, you know, because it's a very specific discipline. And I love it. I'm happy, like, put me on a set, put me on a shoot. I'm like, you know, I'm a happy woman. So I learned a lot there. And then with regard to when I left, the reason I left Hunter Scars was because I had the opportunity to be a creative director at Ogilvy, and I wanted to work with Jerry Human because I liked the work he did, and I thought he would, and that was very good for me as well because he taught me a lot. And then when he left, I became ECD. And then when I left Ogilvy, it was to learn about digital specifically because we had Ogilvy One, but it was a separate division and I wasn't getting the exposure. I wanted to really dive in and learn like from the coal face, which was also terrifying. And I mean, I spent a lot of time just nodding and going, you know, there's a whole world. I didn't know what UX was. I didn't know like what SEO was. I didn't, you know, so I spent like the first 6 months going, and like, but it was great because I learned a lot. And then I think once I felt like I'd learned what I could learn there. The thought of Grey was very attractive because I liked the culture. I liked the approach they were taking, which was about destroying all internal divisions and making one agency. So, you know, the tradition was that agencies would be separated into disciplines, which were all run as separate businesses. And that it can be very difficult to achieve integration like that. But the Grey culture was borderless and open, which is, you know, there's no separate departments. It's one bottom line. We all collaborate. And globally, Grey is a very collaborative, it's a very collaborative organization as well. So, you know, you can work on briefs from anywhere in the world. So that was what I loved.
That's great. And as I said, you know, normally within our industry, a lot of people feel that they need to move around quite a bit and it looks a lot better if you've had experience in different places. So maybe just touching on that again. So would your recommendation be go with similar career path that you have, which is stay longer and absorb a lot more in different spaces and different agencies? Or do you think it's right for people to move as often as they can to go to different spaces, to different agencies?
I mean, it used to be that if you had moved around a lot, you know, it didn't look good on your CV, but I don't think it's quite the same anymore.
Not with the millennial culture.
Yeah, exactly. I think that you need to, you know, I think you need to make sure that you have learned everything that you want to learn from a place. And if you are getting good opportunities, you know, you need to consider, am I working with great people? So, you know, I always look at who will I be working with? Who's going to be mentoring me? That was always the important thing for me. Who's the, I mean, I once heard an actress say that she would, when she chooses parts, you know, roles, like film roles, that she would rather be part of a great project than have a big role in a not so great project. And that's always been how I've, I want to join
makes sense.
I don't want to be a big cheese in a not so great organization. I want to be part of a team in a great organization, like with who am I going to be working with? Do I respect them? Can I learn from them? What kind of work are they doing? Those priorities change as you get older. So when I was a young creative, I just wanted to do cool work and win awards, and I wanted to have fun. And then it became clear to me that there were gaps in my learning, that I wanted to make more film. I wanted to make more TV ads. And I thought that was something that I would get a lot of at TBWA, which I then did. Mm-hmm. And there were also great accounts, and also, some of the best creative people in the world were at that agency, So that was a huge draw card. So you got to weigh these things up,
I know, because it's such a challenge, because we speak to a lot of young people, and it almost seems that because agencies, life, society right now, because the challenge that we're having is such a state of flux, a lot of people are confused in terms of, how do I set myself into the right career trajectory? And therefore, this is so useful for us to have this chat. Having a look at your career during the time, what are some of the highlights? What are some of the things that just stand out and define your career to date?
I think, there's been so many. It's been a great, career, in that you get lots of exposure to lots of different industries. I think one of my highlights was working on the Nando's blind lady ad in the late 90s. So my art director and I had that brief, and we came up with that ad. And that thing was so notorious, and I don't think I saw that coming. I remember driving, it was flighted, and then all this like drama happened. And I remember driving to, I was like 27. I was driving to work, and there was one of those newspaper posters, SA Council of Churches begs Nando's to remove ad. And they literally the South African Council of Churches phoned TBWA and said, please take that ad down. It's offensive. And I think, I don't think we'd intended it that way at all, but there was this thrill of going, oh my word, I've done something that the whole country is talking about. That was an enormous, there is something wonderful about doing a piece of work that people talk about, where you go to a restaurant or whatever, and the people at the next table are talking about like an ad you did. It happens less now because of the proliferation of media. Back in the days when everyone watched TV, it happened more. But it's just or when people talk about a brand that you work on, even now, people are so impressed. Like my own family like when they introduce me to somebody, they say I'm in advertising and I worked on Nando's. I have not worked on Nando's in like centuries, but for my parents, like that is the biggest thing. So that was huge, being part of that. I remember winning my first Loeries, which was for a Nando's radio ad, walking up on that stage with my knees like knocking together. That was an amazing feeling. And then I remember winning at Cannes, my first gold at Cannes in 2010, and just that rush of walking up again, hoping your knees don't give way, and getting that award. But also, the ad that we had made was for the Topsy Foundation, made a real impact, and that was a wonderful feeling too. So there's something great about knowing that you worked on a piece of work that actually made a difference. So that's definitely been a highlight for me. And then becoming ECD at Ogilvy was the first time somebody was letting me run the creative department of a whole agency, and that was terrifying. For a while, I had such anxiety, because you're like, I'm going to screw this up. I really am. Literally, I'd wake up in the morning and go, okay, do not screw this up. I really battled it. And if anybody wants to talk to me about anxiety, I can talk to you about that. But it was just finding your feet in that position and discovering your, and I had great people, I had a great creative department. It was it's a great agency. So that helped. And just finding your feet in that is a wonderful experience to go through as well.
Yeah, they formalized the name now, and they call that imposter syndrome, where you go in and you just. So, do you find that do you find that early parts of your career, that's what it was, just imposter syndrome, and you just felt that you?
Sure. Even now, in fact, I may have had imposter syndrome considerably less when I was younger than I do now, actually. I think when you're younger, you like, so you know what happens is when you first go into advertising, you do a small thing well and everyone praises you. Like, you know what I mean? It's so easy to do well when you're young in advertising, you know what I mean? You write a funny radio ad that people like, and that's like, oh, it gets harder and harder to excel as you move up the ladder. And also, I think your role becomes more about building other people up, right? So, you know, I mean, leadership's lonely, right? You have to be okay because you've got to look after everyone else.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
the insecurity, in a way, kind of gets worse as you, or it has the power to get worse as you go up, because it's harder to overachieve in a way, because you're doing bigger things and there's more variables. And, you know, but also, yeah, I mean, I'll have moments even now where I'll be like, oh my word, everyone is so much cleverer than me. And like, you know, yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting thing. I think almost in a way I had more confidence when I was much younger, because I kind of thought I was invincible. I was young, and like, you don't know what you don't know when you're that young, you know?
It's always easier being a challenger, isn't it? I think,
Yeah.
I think that's it. You've got a challenger mindset.
Yeah.
As you are, and let's be honest, like, you're one of the giants of the industry now. Now it's at the point where you
Thank
go, and it's true. And I mean, you've done such amazing things as well. But I always tell, even speaking about leadership and the challenges, I always chat to Susie Bowling, who's our COO,
Yeah.
and I go, one of the biggest stresses for me is always going, you know, we're running the Loeries, and you've got all these salaries that you need to pay, and you need to take care of people. So it's not just the work. It's the work is then you got to make sure the work's great, but it also comes to the admin side and the people and taking care of that. I think when you're younger, you have the luxury of not having to worry about all of that.
No, yeah, your job's much simpler. And in a way, I've said this before, I think, where it's almost impossible when you become a CCO or a CEO or whatever, it's almost impossible to do the job well in all areas, like, because it's so huge. So in a way, you have to focus on certain areas, and you might defocus on other areas, but then you've switched to that. So you almost have to like shift focus, because it's actually almost impossible to do everything 100% well all the time. In a way, you have to go, okay, well, I'll be like 75% in that area now, because this needs, you know, and then I quickly go back there when, So it's that juggling, it's that balancing act as well.
Yeah, you get pulled around in different areas, and you never have enough time to do it. I mean, also in terms of the challenges that we have, if you look at it, and other than just being pulled around, now is probably one of the strangest times for most people ever in their career. What are your thoughts in terms of the industry and how the industry is coping? I think, you know, it was a lot tougher trying to get a viewpoint 2 or 3 months ago. But if you look at it today, what are your thoughts in terms of the strength of the industry and the trajectory it's in right now?
So I think, you know, I think in a lot of ways, things are sort of starting to go back to normal a little bit, where with shoots, you know, for a while we couldn't produce anything because you couldn't physically gather on a shoot or go to a radio studio, and so production is sort of coming back now. But I think we're discovering, and I think there's still a journey, but I think there's a lot of discovering about how actually to run an agency remotely, because I think it does require a different approach from, you know, so for the first little bit, it was like, okay, well, now we have to work remotely. We're going to do what we've always done, but we'll just do it all from home. And I think that we're starting to see the weaknesses in that. So things like, you know, some people thrive in solitude and some people don't. There's challenges with morale, making sure everyone's okay. But then there's also possibilities like, well, we don't have to have everyone who's employed by the agency living in Sandton. We can actually employ someone who lives in Limpopo. Like that's also okay. You know, and once you get over your anxiety or your discomfort about doing something differently, you know, that's also quite exciting, where you go, well, actually, there's a lot more possibilities now with regard to maybe we can increase, you know, maybe we can be more inclusive now, because you know, if you look at where most ad agencies in Johannesburg, they're all in the same sort of place. They're like in the northern suburbs. So, you know, anyone who gets a job has got to either live in the north, like nearby, which is very expensive, or spend a lot of money and time commuting. And I think that's a little bit of a barrier, you know. So what if that wasn't a thing? What if you know, you could live far out and then not have to commute to the office every day? Might it be an opportunity to increase our inclusiveness, to have more different kinds of people, you know, in the agency? And what does that mean for how we organize work, for how we run creative departments, for how we lead? Because, you know, leadership, I believe in, you know, leadership is about face time and personal contact. So how do we then do that, you know, without spending all day on a video call? Do we have satellite offices? Do you know what I mean? Do you have one co-working space and then little satellite? And these are things we need to think about. I always think the danger would be defaulting back to what we had without really thinking through, well, how could we do it differently? Do we have little satellite offices in places where we can get together and, you know, and work in groups, or like,
Yeah, you know, it's a strange thing. As you're speaking, I was thinking about this, and I've, it was in 1984-85, Harvard released a paper where they actually said that they expect remote working to be the new normal, and that was in the mid 80s. And it's only now in 2020 do you actually find that a lot of organizations are embracing it, and I'm hoping that it is going to become part of the new normal of it. But one of the challenges we do have is, well, there's the positives of being able to work remotely, but then there's also the challenges to the financial health of the industry. Obviously, budgets are being cut. Do you think we're going to get back? Do you think it'll be how long soon before we actually recover as an industry, and you tend to find we're back to the same levels of spends from brands that they used to have pre-COVID?
I don't think till next year. I mean, I don't know. I'd like to be more upbeat about that, but I don't know. I'm probably not. I mean, possibly not until next year. Hopefully, optimistically, maybe November. You know, because I think the knock-on effects, there's going to be a longer tail of this, right? Because I mean, demand will go down, you know, as people have less disposable income. So that's going to have effect on demand, which will then have a further knock-on effect on I guess production, how much available money there is, you know, how much is produced, how many. So it is a fairly daunting scenario, I think. You know, you can be upbeat about it and say, you know, and it does. I mean, there is, you know, it does pay to advertise in a recession. So clients or brands who keep on communicating do, in the long term, win. But I think that we've got a while before. We don't know. Is there going to be a second wave? Like, that's the other thing, or is this both waves? Like, you know what I mean? Like, we don't know.
Yeah, one of the things, excuse me, I'm hoping for. I have a theory based on economics, and that is that, you know, you're going to find there's going to be a lot of inventory right now that's going to be really, really reduced in price. And hopefully what I'm hoping for is that there's then a buying frenzy where brands are going to look at this and, you know, some looking, like versus what I paid for this in 2019, I'm sitting in quarter four of 2020 and being offered this inventory at a really, really low price. And they start buying it up and they go, let's buy it and hold on to it because we'll be able to use it. And I'm hoping that because of that happening and coming, you're going to find that there's going to be a need for content to fill the space of that inventory itself. And hopefully that between quarter four, quarter one, and most likely in quarter one, quarter two, we're going to see of 2021, we might see some sort of recovery purely because brands go, we're sitting with this, we're either going to use it or lose it. Let's create the content that needs to go out there. But
and I mean, so there's other ways to look at it, is that, you know, interest rates are really low. So you can, you know, it's cheaper to borrow money now. You know, you could probably, so that could also stimulate spending. So, you know, so there is that. And I mean, in the fallout of certain industries, there may be a whole lot of newcomers, you know, that could be interesting as well. So it's relatively easy to get into. I mean, there's very few barriers to entry to advertising. If you've got a laptop and some skills, you can probably start doing some work, some design or some, so there may be more independent agencies that come up in the aftermath of this. People who, just have a more flexible approach, or who have left traditional employ or had to leave, but have now go out and then start their own thing.
Yeah, the other chats I've been having a lot about is also in terms of transformation. And, there's always been a traditional idea that to promote greater transformation in the agency, in the industry itself, it's about hiring young talent and getting them out. But also very important is as you've said, is having lots of independent agencies starting up. How important do you think it is for, if you've got the opportunity to start an independent agency right now, do you think it's the right time to take a risk?
Well, I mean, I remember the founder of DM9, Nizan Gwans, I may have said his name wrong, but he gave a talk once at when I was at TBWA, and he started his agency in a recession. And he said, in a time of great struggle, you can do two things. You can cry or you can sell tissues. And he said he decided to sell tissues. The barriers to entry of getting into advertising are low. And if your overheads are low, so if you don't have big personal expenses that you have to cover every month, you can actually take that risk. And, clients may be in a position where they don't have the money to afford a big agency, and you can come in and start. So there's always opportunities in every situation where there's always opportunities. There probably will be some quite affordable retail space going if you want to set up an office somewhere, or we've all discovered you can work from anywhere. So I don't think it's a bad time to start up an agency at all. There are a couple of sort of these federated models coming out. So Per Pedersen, who was our global chief creative officer, and then a guy that I used to work with called Eric Funke, they've both started, they're kind of like federated models where it's a group. It's an association of independent creatives who will come together and collaborate on a brief. So the person at the center is kind of the broker. They will take a brief in, they will, and then within that federation, they'll work on that brief. So there's other models emerging now as well.
Have you seen that in South Africa or anywhere across Africa and the Middle East as yet? Because I haven't seen that here. Yeah, because that's a very interesting business model, which I think could work really, really well. I mean, the one place where I've seen that model work and make such a big difference is obviously in the retail environment, where you had big retailers and the smaller retailers went, the only way to cope is we came together in this federated kind of model. So we had the same buying power as the bigger groups, and it worked really well. So that's an interesting model if anyone's actually listening as well. In terms of the industry as well, I've been having a lot of discussions, and there's this challenge that there's not enough women and not enough Black women in the industry as well. How has it been in terms of your career finding as a woman coming through this industry? What have been some of the challenges, and what's some of the advice you can give to women in the industry right now?
I think that I was very fortunate because, I was always somehow in agencies with very strong women leaders. So, at Jupiter, Renee Silverstone was the MD, there. And then when I went to Hunter Scaris, Sandy DeWitt was an ECD there. Marie Jamison was running the strat department. There was very, very strong women there. And then again at Ogilvy, Nunu Shingila was CEO. So I was always quite fortunate from that point of view. And so what I hope to do is kind of nurture more female talent, because it doesn't always stand to reason that as a woman, you're going to be a better boss to women, right? I know a lot of women who've said some of the worst experiences they've had have been at the hands of female bosses, actually. So, I sort of try to be conscious about promoting female talent. And I think I think there's a lot of very, very, very good, very strong, capable, powerful women in advertising. Sometimes I think, you know, some of those people have chosen to work outside of traditional agency structure. So they'll be running their own business or they'll consult. So I think that happens a lot as well. So if you look at the traditional agency structure, I think the real picture is if you look across the whole industry where there's women running their own business or consulting or even setting up, you know, within a larger agency, their own kind of incubation. So, but it is something I think that we need to work on. From what I've, from what I've gathered from the open chair sessions, sometimes young women are afraid to speak up, or, you know, they don't realize the value of their ideas. And that's something I think we need to almost be aware of, that in a group brainstorm session, I think sometimes women can get interrupted, or, you know, they don't get the airtime to say, you know, to talk about their idea. So, you know, just really being conscious of that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And hopefully, you know, we still have to have our discussions and our plans and see things that we're going to work together with where the Loeries can actually get involved. But hopefully we can do a lot more of that with the Loeries. Coming back to the Loeries stuff and a little bit more of a, right, do you remember your first Loerie Awards that you ever attended?
Yes, it was at Sun City.
Everyone says Sun City. I think it seems to be like that was the catchment pool of.
It really was. It really was. Yeah. And you know, you were all like the three of you in a room at the cabanas, and it was a lot of fun. And then if you were one of the juniors, you had to sit up in the gallery and watch. And I think it was all just hosted by Mnet at that stage. So all the Mnet it was terribly glamorous. And I remember, I think that first year, Eric Funke and Wendy Moorcroft went up on stage so many times. I thought, oh my word. They did this campaign for Gold's Gym, which was a gym in the center of Joburg. And it was, they won, I think they went up on stage so many times. I was just in awe. I just looked and I thought, oh my word, those people are gods. Will I ever be that like that, you know? And I didn't, you know, like at that stage, I didn't drink. I was a very, and so it was a very sober experience, and I just watched and took it all in, and, you know, like it was just awe-inspiring because it was terribly glamorous, you know, for me to see all those like Mnet celebrities and to see the work, you know, it was that year, it was the early Nando's work. I think that very first ad with the toilet roll in the fridge, you know, and it was the early days of, you know, Hunter Scaris and Nando's. And so it was, I think the whole evening was dominated by Hunter Scaris. That I just remember them, you know, calling out so many times. It really just stuck with me, like, wow, this is amazing. I want to be like those people.
And how have you found this experience of going from, you know, having come through the industry and remembering that first experience and now looking and going, you're now chairperson of that organization, of the Loeries, which is such an iconic organization?
I think it's exciting because I think the Loeries has become a lot more. So then, you know, it was much more of a kind of glamorous awards evening, and I think the Loeries has evolved with the time, right? Where you know, advertising it's not as frivolous like as it used to be, and it's more now. I think that the Loeries has evolved with the times, and it's, you know, I love where the Loeries is now. It's more about education, inspiration, transformation. So I'm really proud. I think being chairman of the Loeries back then wouldn't have felt as meaningful. It wouldn't have been as, it wouldn't have felt like you were really building something. You know, I think back then it was just a big party and awards and very glamorous, but I really like the purpose that the Loeries has now. And I feel like it's a much more interesting challenge and more exciting for me to think about, well, how do we make sure that more people come into the industry? How do we reach out to more young people, more diverse young people? How do we teach them? How do we use this experience? Because I believe that awards shows are vital for driving innovation in the industry. I actually wrote part of my thesis on this, where the way that innovation happens within the ad industry is through awards shows. So the highlighting. Wow. So you go to an award show and the foregrounding of new and innovative techniques and ideas shows people, so clients and creatives, what is possible, and then that becomes the new benchmark. So if you look, and I lived through this with the early days of the internet. So that first year that BMW Films won the Titanium, there was no YouTube. There was not the capability to actually play video on a website. It wasn't a thing. And everyone, we take it for granted now, but the first, when BMW did that, it just broke. That was the start of this incredible idea that every single computer screen or could be a screen for film, and that's what I mean. They did it, and they won an award for it, but because it was featured at Cannes and everyone all over the world saw it, suddenly you were like, wait, that's what we can do with this. And then of course if you look at the proliferation of, everyone at one stage, people were saying, oh, the internet will kill TV. Well, it hasn't. It's revived film, and it started there. And being highlighted at Cannes was an important part of getting that idea out to the world and driving change and driving innovation. So it's exciting to be part of an awards show, because I believe it, things like the Loeries have an important role to play in inspiration, but also in new practices, innovation, new ways of thinking about things.
No, completely agree, and I think that's the key value that we actually bring as well as Loeries, and also highlighting people at the forefront of that innovative thinking as well, so that they can be supported and nurtured, so that they can bring these new things to the foreground and act as inspiration for other people as well, because people follow people, right?
Of course. And I love the way that the Loeries, there's now service design categories, and I can't remember the name for it now, but where it's the double bottom line thing, you make a profit, your business model makes your
shared
profit
value.
Also, we go.
Shared value.
Yes, there we go. I love that those categories are in there, because I think that's really exciting. I judged shared value, I think last year or the year before. It was wonderful. And again, it shows the way. So if companies like Sanlam and Nando's are doing it, then other companies go, oh wait, we can do that. Yeah,
we can do it as well.
It's possible. Yeah.
The interesting thing is that lots of people don't know this, and I was having a chat earlier today, and people go, who owns the Loeries? And lots of people don't know Loeries is a non-profit organization. So every person on this call, or every person who's going to watch this, you're in a way a shareholder of the Loeries, because we're a non-profit and we're just here to support you as well. And in terms of your time, Fran, as the new Loeries chairperson, what are you hoping to do? What are some of the things you'd hope to come? 2 years, so you've got 2 years to do this. What are some of the things you want to come out of this 2-year term?
I think, I believe that there have been amazing initiatives started, and I would like to carry on the momentum of those. So I think Open Chair as an initiative is something that needs to be developed and to live. And interestingly, the lockdown, I think, the virtual version of Open Chair actually works brilliantly. So it's been wonderful to see how that is, it wasn't killed by lockdown, it's actually been revived. So I think, and I think for me, it would be interesting. I would be really proud if at the end of 2 years, we as a team had managed to kind of increase the reach of the awards and the diversity, the kind of to increase the catchment area that we get creative people from. So appeal to more people, a wider audience, and just get more people coming in from different backgrounds.
Yeah. And one of the other things that we're doing, speaking about initiatives as well, and I think I've got a good quote to end with here, but speaking about initiatives, we made Loeries entries free this year.
Yes.
And I think, as you know, we did it really because the industry has been highly challenged. And it was one of the ways that the Loeries was trying to support the industry to make sure we can get these results and we can get the rankings, so people can use that going into 2021.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's so important for the industry to, what do you think is so important for us to have done this initiative of making entries free this year?
Well, I actually think it says a lot about the values of the Loeries, because it can't have been easy to waive entry fees, right? I kind of want to ask you how you did that, but like, yeah, like, because you have mouths to feed and salaries to pay, right? And it's not cheap. So I think I think it says a lot about the values of the Loeries, that you know, that it's that saying, we believe this is an important event and we believe it matters to people, and so we're going to take a hit, and we're going to bring it to you anyway, because we believe it plays an important role for a lot of people in our industry. So I think that it's very interesting if you consider, you know, the Lions, yeah, they just called it off and said, oh, we'll have it next year instead. And there was a lot of talk around it was like, oh yeah, well, you're doing it because you think you won't get that many entries anyway, you know. It was a little bit exposed, that decision. And I don't know if that was a fair assessment of why they made the decision. But I think, to me, the Loeries taking this incredible step says, well, that you're really serious about your aim, which is transformation and education, inspiration, driving change, and committing to still doing it in a year when it's going to be a very different format. It just says, well, yeah, well, you really are serious about change.
I'll give you some insight into that, Fran.
Yes.
You know, we need the entry revenue in order to sustain it as a non-profit, and it's not like it's making profit. No one's buying Ferraris and Lamborghinis and driving around. It all goes back into the industry. And this year we looked at it and went, if we made entries free, how expensive it's going to be. And it is expensive, because you still have to do everything. And we just went, we'll do it, and we'll go out and try and find sponsors. We'll go and find organizations who believe in the shared value, and organizations who truly go, we support the industry in its toughest time. And we knew if those organizations were out there who'd support the industry, we could kind of get to a point and do something. And I think, therefore, for anyone tuning in, if you have a look at our sponsors, I have so much respect and so much gratitude to everyone who's coming around. We're still far away from I'll be honest, we're still far away from the targets we need in order to be able to pay all the bills. But the organizations that have come on board and supported the Loeries in this year, they're not supporting us as an organization. They're supporting every single person on this call, every single person in the industry, and going, we recognize that the Loeries are going to make a difference in your life, and we want to be part of that journey. So special thanks to all of our sponsors.
In a year when they've all taken a knock, you know, like revenue, I mean, that is astonishing. And I think it's testimony to the purpose of the Loeries, which is, in our industry, we need transformation, we need change, and we need increased access. We need, you know, a broader, we need to extend access to a broader pool of people. So I think that it just shows that you're serious about that.
Perfect. Fran, thank you so much for your time. I can't believe we're out of time. I've got like a whole list of questions.
Where did it go?
I know, and I didn't even get to all of the other questions I had. So we're going to have, luckily I have 2 years with you to have lots of chats and to learn a lot from you and have a lot more discussions.
Yeah.
I just want to say, just before I have you give your closing words, just to thank you to Ria Finzel from Vega, who is here on the line as well, dropped us a comment agreeing with the comments that we made. But before I end, I want to just read a quote from Alan Edgar, who says, I found today's chat hugely inspiring and entertaining. I love the throwaway line about the controversy around the Nando's blind lady TVC, that I didn't see that coming. Huh?
Oh, wow. That was not intended. Sharp, Alan. That was completely unintentional.
And Fran's vulnerability and honesty about being anxious regarding the responsibility as ECD, as Ogilvy. Not many people would be so brave to admit that. You're incredible, Fran. What a fantastic choice as new Loeries chairperson. #exciting times. Thank you to Alan Ria.
Thank you. Thanks.
Arun,
wow, such kind words.
Olivia, Joanna, just some of the people who've been on this, and the many more people who are on Facebook as well. Parting words to you, Fran, thank you so much. Anything you'd like to share with everyone who's in the industry at this point, challenges that they're experiencing, but also maybe some messages of hope as they get through this?
Yeah, I think, one of the things I learned at the Berlin School of Creative Leadership, one of the things they teach is that you can lead from anywhere. You don't actually need the title. You can actually lead wherever you are. Because I think the world needs leaders. It needs leadership. And especially now, it needs leadership. And so, it's great to be given a title, but actually wherever you are, you can show leadership because the world needs it. They need people who are mature and can think and care enough to get involved and try. I mean, we can make a way through this. We can do it. That's what we do for a living. We solve problems. And I think, these are hard times, and it's quite easy to just feel quite down in the morning, but it's an opportunity to lead wherever you are and whoever you are, to actually take yourself and think about what you can add to a situation. How can you make something better? How can you help someone? How can you contribute, even in a small way? Because leadership is about, it's not about a title or an office. It's literally about you making a decision to make a difference wherever you are.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Fran. And let's hope we can bring and nurture a lot more new leaders and leadership.
Yeah, I would really love that. That'd be great.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Fran Luckin, thank you so much. Our new Loeries Chairperson. If you want to find out more, go to our Loeries website, which is loeries.com, to read about our initiatives, but also read about Fran. If you want to find out more, Fran is on, I'm going to give all your social media stuff away, Fran. Fran is on LinkedIn. Search for Fran Luckin, or if you can go to Twitter @FLuck, that's EFFLUCK. This chat is available immediately. If you missed it, it's available immediately on Facebook. So tune in, have a look, and looking forward to chatting to everyone. And thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you once again, Fran, and all the best. Have a good weekend.
You too. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.